Before the start of tonight's e-Spurs podcast, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the tragic and devastating passing of Tottenham Hotspur under-23 coach Ugo Ehiogu. Ugo was a huge part of the development team at Spurs and played a critical part in our academy, which has seen many of our young talent flourish into the first team. Our thoughts and sympathies are with all lucky enough to know him. Thank you, Ugo. Our condolences from all of the e-Spurs podcast team. This is your e-Spurs podcast. Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget you can subscribe to the show via iTunes or Acast and get every brand new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and Instagram at e_Spurs. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms you can head to our brand new website of www.e-Spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight we'll be discussing the defeat to Chelsea in the FA Cup. We'll be taking your questions for our panel as always, and we'll be previewing Crystal Palace Wednesday evening. But before we talk all things Tottenham Hotspur tonight, let's introduce tonight's panel talking us through the next hour. I'm delighted to say first up we've got Ross Berry. Ross, the founder of Hotspur Related, the largest independent fan account. Ross, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. You?
Yes, very well, thank you, Ross. Getting over Saturday, but I think we're going to be all right. We'll have the therapy to get through it.
Let's hope so, mate. Let's hope so.
Fingers crossed. And I'm also pleased to say we've got the voice of ITV2 and huge Spurs fan, Lucy Jones, joining us. Lucy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm shattered after the weekend, but trying to get over it.
Yeah, well, like I say, I'm sure, Lucy, in the next hour or so, we'll try and alleviate some of the demons. I can't promise, but we'll try our best to. And last but not least, I'm delighted to say we've got Jason McGovern back with us. Jace, how are you?
Not too happy, mate. Probably halfway between Genus and Shearer in the debate.
Says it all, doesn't it? Says it all.
But that doesn't mean I'm Frank Lampard sitting in the middle of them.
Oh, dear.
Thank God for that.
Oh, Jason, we're going to start with you. Jason, I know on this podcast, and if anyone's listened over the last few months, you've been the advocate of saying gamecraft, learning from your mistakes. We have to talk some of our mistakes on Saturday. Did we shoot ourselves in the foot on a couple of occasions? I know we played very well, but what did you make of the game itself?
Oh, we definitely shot ourselves in the foot on a number of occasions, and they're the one side. I think, as I said last week, I respect them not because it's Chelsea Football Club or for anything like that, but the way as a football team they're so ruthless at exposing every single weakness that you have, and they've done that for a number of years to a lot of bigger sides than Tottenham Hotspur as well. But Son's mistake was a silly one. Toby's mistake was a silly one where Pedro looked to be going nowhere, and you just looked at Chelsea and they made fouls in the key areas of the pitch where we couldn't harm them, so it breaks your rhythm up, and yet we made two desperate fouls in critical areas of the pitch, and really that was the difference. Because I've seen lots of things about they won the tactical battle. For me, they didn't win the tactical battle. We dominated possession of the game, and we did the things to them that we did at White Hart Lane. In fact, we probably created more chances on Saturday than we did at White Hart Lane. We got team selection wrong. I wouldn't say we got it wrong tactically, but the big difference between the two games at White Hart Lane, we didn't make those silly, sloppy mistakes, and that was a big difference between the two results.
Bringing it to you, Ross. I mean, listen, we'll put the blatant dive aside from Victor Moses, which I wonder if you agree with, but Spurs better team for majority of the game, but again, didn't take our chances and gifted Chelsea their goals, bar that Weldy. What did you make of it?
I thought I was strangely optimistic after a couple of days leaving it alone and kind of reflecting on it now. But I did feel like I say on reflection, that it almost feels like the title race this season. Spurs were the dominant team. We played the attractive football. We scored the goals, but again, it wasn't enough goals. Whereas Chelsea, for all their worth in terms of how well they play or don't play on the eye, they got the job done and secured the place in the final there, obviously. I think even Toby said it in his post-match. They scored 4 goals from 5 shots or something like that. So obviously it was efficiency.
Yeah, I know you're very big on Twitter, so there was a massive meltdown as why Son playing this kind of left wing back role. It's never been done before. I mean, what did you make of it? Clearly he's tried to get him in the team alongside the likes of Dele Alli, Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen. Is that where you feel the game may have been lost?
No, I think obviously it was all for us clear to see that Son showed a bit of naivety when he brought down Moses. Regardless of your thoughts on it, when you go to ground in the box like that, you're giving the player the chance to earn the penalty. But no, I thought other than the first 10 minutes when Chelsea really ramped it up and obviously they got that penalty, that he played all right there. I thought it was a case of a lot of the talk on Twitter was the fact that who would be dropped, whether it be Dyer, Wanyama or Son. Obviously Son having great form in the competition previously. But I didn't really have an issue with the team selection. Obviously I thought it was weird that Ben Davies wasn't playing, but I still felt confident, bearing in mind the 2 league games that we did play against them. Arguably we had a better performance at the Bridge and we didn't get the result, and when we didn't play as good but maybe a bit more Chelsea-like in terms of efficiency and didn't dominate the game at Wembley Lane, we still came away with a 3 points. So I was confident regardless of the team selection, to be completely honest with you, Ricky.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's one of those games where you couldn't question, Lucy, coming on to you, couldn't question the commitment, the effort of the players. What did you make of the game itself? Could we have done any more?
I think it's a bit like a boxing match. We just jabbed, and then we had a little knock of confidence, and then they took the opportunity.
The killer punch as such with Chelsea.
Killer punch. They saw it, they took it. I was very worried when we were walking up Wembley Way and we saw the team sheet of Chelsea. We were all worried. I think everyone was on edge the whole game until they brought Costa and Hazard on, to be honest.
Is that where you feel the game changed, when they brought those guys on? Would you go along with that? Or
look, it was only going to get better for them, wasn't it, when they brought them on?
But from a Spurs perspective, pleased with the performance, Lucy? Could we have done any more? I mean, I think Ross touched upon, we did dominate the game. Granted, maybe didn't take some of our chances, but could we have put anything more into the game, in your opinion?
I think Sonny looked really nervous. It's why touch the ball, just shoot it. I don't know, maybe I'm just being, I'm just so drained. Look at the possession, 64%. It's just heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is, and the funny thing is, Lucy, it's now Monday evening we're recording this. This is going to go out Tuesday morning. I know it sounds ridiculous what I'm going to say. I still don't feel like I still have not come to terms that we've lost that game, because we had so much possession. I think there was one team really, Spurs. I felt Chelsea at 2-2. They were resigned going to extra time, but again, we've talked about it before, Jace. Big players stepping up. I mean, we've seen the likes of Harry Kane for us stepping up. I think that's his 21st goal in 24 London derbies. Dele Alli again, Christian Eriksen playing his part. But these Chelsea players, I mean, they're big difference makers, aren't they? If you can bring a Hazard and a Costa off the bench, it's going to prove pivotal, isn't it?
Well, I think, in fairness, their bench is obviously stronger than ours, even at our best. I still think there's a little bit that there's no Lamella on the bench, there's no Winks on the bench. Who was the other one I was thinking of? Son would usually be on the bench, and because of the injuries that we have through the side, our bench isn't as strong as it normally is. Now, you can argue the fact whether it's strong enough to start with, but I think that there is an element of that. And as I've said all season, if William, if Matic, if Alonso, and if David Luiz is missing, then their bench doesn't look quite the same as it did on Saturday anyway, and they wouldn't be resting those players. But I'll take the point that there's a stronger bench, and I'm not so convinced that Hazard coming on, I know it's going to sound crazy, I know, but made as big a difference as it's made out to be. Because for me, okay, he scores the third goal. But the third goal for me wasn't what I call a real Eden Hazard goal. It's not like the type of goal he scored against Arsenal this year. It's not like the type of goal, for instance, that he scored at Stamford Bridge against us last year, when he produced this absolute piece of magic that Eden Hazard can produce. And I think he came on, Carl Walker came on, I think Walker robbed him 2 or 3 times of the ball, and so the big impact he had was a straight shot from outside the box, purely because we didn't close him down. It wasn't that Eden Hazard completely turned the game in the way that I think some people have written about it.
Yeah, and bring it on to you, Ross. I mean, listen, when you look at it like this, we're by far the better team against a side with much greater resources. A lot of money's gone in there. A couple of mistakes, the difference. Is that what we can take out of it in terms of the heart that when you look at Spurs and Chelsea, there isn't too much between the two sides, is there?
No, I mean, obviously it seems ludicrous to say now, but I still feel rather positive, not only about the isolated game against Chelsea, but it feels like we've kind of carried on from the Genk game. I know obviously we lost that one too, but in terms of the fact that we are now performing at Wembley, all right, we're not yet getting the results, but I was there earlier on this season for the Monaco game, the opening game of the Champions League, and there we just didn't look like the Tottenham we know at White Hart Lane, whereas at least now we're getting the performances at Wembley, which obviously I'm sure we might touch on later, but considering they reckon we're going to go to Wembley for next season is almost definite now. The fact that we're kind of at least showing some form that we recognise, so to speak, rather than what we'd seen earlier on in the season. But obviously that's another topic for later discussion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And bringing it to you, Lucy, a player that I know a lot of Spurs players stood out for me, but Moussa Dembele, head and shoulders above every single player on the pitch, in my opinion, really didn't deserve to be on the losing side. I'm sure you're probably going to rattle off to me a few Spurs players as well that shouldn't have been on the losing side. But just how good was he on Saturday? His ball retention at times shows you can get the ball off him, could they?
He's like a hippo, isn't he? All these cheaters trying to get him, and he's hippoing his way through. And also, if you notice, his arms are like a salsa dance. I think he's incredible. The guy is unbelievable, and I just love that they all look like best mates. And I just think it's just heartbreaking. And the lads, none of them deserved it. I mean, I know that Dele's tweeted a couple of days after, and it's just But Moussa is unbelievable.
He really is. And Jace, coming to you, I mean, Lucy's just said there, the team itself, the spirit. Do you not think it will be an absolute travesty if we do not win something with this team, with this manager? I mean, I do honestly believe Saturday I still felt, even 2-1, I knew he'd come back into the game. There was an optimism of belief, definitely much from where I was in the stadium, that Spurs were going to come back into it and we're going to win it. Previous Spurs teams in the past, we've seen us go behind at Wembley, there wouldn't be that confidence, but twice we've come back against Chelsea, twice we've shown the spirit, determination to come back. We can't be too far now from success with this team.
Well, I think like you, I thought at 2-2, I did fancy us then to go on and win the game. And it will be a travesty if the team doesn't win it. But, there has been other teams that haven't won trophies that have similarly been fantastic sides or whatever. We somehow got to get across the line, and you're going to have to beat one of those really big sides to do it. And we have to I think we are so close to getting it right. And it is a question of just cutting out the really sloppy mistakes that we make in those games, and I don't know whether that's purely down to experience in those situations, belief in those situations, or quite how you solve that problem. But until we do solve it, it's going to be hard for us, because you're always going to play one of those really big sides in a semi-finals or finals.
Also, if you look at it, Chelsea have got a squad of players that have won titles. They've won things. Yeah. What have we got? We've got so much time. I think we're putting too much on ourselves. Poch is not very far into this. You tweeted, Ricky, the other day about Alex Ferguson. He didn't get anything for how many years?
5 years, yeah. 5 years. Yeah, for Man United, yeah.
Because we're not used to this. We want it so bad. Yeah. But I think we need to be realistic.
It's not just he was 5 years, Lucy. It was what one Mark Robins goal from being sacked.
Yeah. But bringing it to you, though, Ross, bringing you into this, the concern is now, what it's like, modern day football, the likes of social media now, the way it is. Is he going to get the time, Ross, to build at Spurs? He's done great in the last couple of years. We've seen a real collective bond at Spurs, the squad that probably we haven't seen in the likes of, I don't know, certainly in my lifetime, never, this collective bond. Is he going to have the time, Ross, to get it right? Will he get the time?
I think you've just answered the question, Ricky. The strength of the first team, I mean, I know obviously some say critics about the bench, but the first team is the strongest in my lifetime. Admittedly, I'm young. Yeah. Obviously, the stadium's coming along. There seems to be a real ethos, and for once that's shared by both the chairman and the manager and the team. And I feel like I cannot imagine any grounds, and I mean, I may just be essentially in love with Poch here, but I can't see any grounds whereby Poch isn't the manager for the next season, the season after, or for at least 2 or 3 years yet, unless obviously someone like Barcelona comes in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I bring it to you, Lucy. How important is it we keep hold of these key players, the likes of the Dele Allis, the Christian Eriksens, the Harry Kanes, because you just feel if we do keep this squad together, like you've just said there, hopefully it is only a matter of time.
What I love about watching them at the moment is they're just having so much fun out there. We saw it with the handshakes. I just love their camaraderie. It's just so enjoyable to watch. And yeah, we're all frightened that someone's going to leave, aren't we?
Yeah, it is. Like I say, it's a real shame we have to have this discussion, because anyone at that game Saturday or watching it can see this Spurs team, they are fighting. There's no doubt the fight was there, the passion was there, the commitment is there. I bring it back round to you, Jace. Maybe that's why. Listen, don't get me wrong, it does hurt losing, but people, I think a lot of people now are seeing the bigger picture, and it's maybe for the first time ever now, there is that real fear behind the likes of the Arsenal and the Chelsea fans that taunt Spurs. They can see that they are long-term threats, aren't we? We are long-term threats, and we're not going to go anywhere.
I think you're right, and I was talking to a Chelsea supporter in the build-up to the game, and he said to me, you know, if you go back in history, Tottenham Arsenal was the big London derby for a long time. And then, sadly, over the past, 15 years, certainly, it's become Arsenal-Chelsea was the big London derby. But as he said to me, you know, over the past couple of years, the big one is actually now becoming Chelsea-Tottenham. And you're getting in front of there in respect that Chelsea have for you. They might take the mickey out of us and they might beat us so often, but they actually fear us far more now than they do Arsenal. And they'll have been far more worried going into Saturday's game than they will be the final. And it does show you how far you've come, but you've still got to get that. You know, you've still got to get that little half a centimetre that it feels like we are away.
Ross, I want to bring it back to the game. I want to ask you about Heung-min Son. Listen, we've discussed the form he was on, form of his life at the moment. It was going to be always very, very hard to drop him. But deploying him in that left wing-back role, obviously it doesn't discount for the Moses, the dive as such, but should he know better as a footballer from a logical perspective going in like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously it's easy to say that now, but I think it's obviously he knew that he was in an unfamiliar position there. Poch obviously knew it, we knew it, and I think he was just trying to prove himself. And like I alluded to earlier, it's probably a touch of naivety from him.
Yeah, it's a real shame because Ross, we've seen how good he's been on the build-up, but there was definitely, would you agree, a hesitancy about his display. He didn't look comfortable, and it's clear he just didn't look right on the pitch. He didn't affect the game. He's been put in a position where he shouldn't have been. Is that down to Poch? I mean, obviously he's the one who's put him there.
Yeah, no, obviously it has to be down to Pochettino, but I think we should, I mean, obviously, not suggesting you are, but we don't want to get into a position where we're kind of almost scapegoating Song for what he's done, considering it's his goals that essentially have carried us there. I mean, I know, admittedly, the opposition hasn't been maybe Premier League standard throughout, but no, I mean, we haven't really heard an explanation about Ben Davies. Obviously, he's the left back. I know there was kind of Twitter rumours, admittedly, I don't know how credible, that he had a slight muscular injury, but, you know, we knew he was without Rose. But Davis doesn't really have an explanation why he wasn't involved. I mean, I don't know if you can shed any light on that, or
I can't. No, I can't. I mean, there wasn't really. I think even in Pochettino's press conference afterwards, he didn't say that Davis was or wasn't injured. So it does kind of leave food for thought that if we had a natural left back, why would we not play him?
No, you'd think there was a reason for that, such as injury.
Yeah, and the thing is, Lucy, what I was thinking, I don't know if you agree, that do you think? This is again a shot in the dark from me. We've seen the Chelsea team come out, that Hazard, Costa isn't starting like you said, you're walking up Wembley way. Do you think Spurs may have got wind of that beforehand and that may have changed our tactics? What do you think? Or is that looking too deeply into it?
I don't think that would have changed the tactics to begin with. I think they were worried about what they planning to do throughout the game. I know that we as fans, well, certainly where I was sitting, like, when are they going to come on? What's going to happen? You know, we were all... I felt like we just were very concerned the whole way through it. I don't know why Poch took a gamble, personally. Why change things that have worked, in the past? But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good you raise that point, Lucy, because I think a few people have raised that point. I bring it to you, Jace. What do you make of that, what Lucy's saying there? Why change that wasn't broken?
Well, I think it is. You're looking at that with the benefit of hindsight. You know, we had the debate last week when we thought the choice would be Wanyama or Son. I went Wanyama and I said I wouldn't criticise him if he goes for Son because Son's on fire. We talk about Taderi's to do. We talk about although we want to see us play attacking football, and he took the attacking option. And let's be fair about it. One thing about Pochettino,
it shows balls, doesn't it? It shows.
And you know, let's be fair. Pochettino, he would not have made the decision that he did if he thought it was going to make the team weaker. And he wouldn't make the decision to think, I know the best thing we can do is now get knocked out of this and we'll do something really stupid by playing Son at left back. So, you know, if the decision was there about, we don't know about Ben Davies, and, you know, I'd love to know. If he's got an injury, then he shouldn't be on the bench. But, we'll give Pochettino the benefit of the doubt. Say he was injured. I don't know when he'd have picked that knock up. Son goes in there. Look, you have to try and make the best of it. Jan Vertonghen has to maybe do a little bit more talking and talk Son through it, and maybe even Wanyama and they have to shuffle across to try and to get those other things. So I'm certainly not going to blame the whole thing onto Son, because we conceded 4 goals.
Yeah,
we didn't concede. We didn't lose 1-0 to a penalty that Son gave away. So there's Toby made an equally rash challenge, and Toby should know better, and that isn't down to naivety. And Hugo should know better than to take 2 steps behind the wall when the ball's going to go the other side. So there was experienced players that made mistakes as much as Son, but I'm not going to blast Pochettino because he obviously took the gamble, he took the attacking option. It didn't work, but if he'd have gone for Wanyama and Chelsea had scored early, everyone would have said this is where we need Son to try and to turn the game around, because Wanyama's not going to do that. So one of those things, damned if you do, damned if you don't, and the result makes makes it look like the decision is right or wrong. But if we'd have won the game, imagine the flack Conte would take for leaving Hazard and Costa out.
Yeah.
Just on that, Rick, as well, with the Wanyama thing, he was, along with Ali, man of the match in the league game at White Hart Lane. Now, if we'd have played Saturday and left Wanyama out and lost it, you'd get everyone saying, why didn't we just do to them what we did at White Hart Lane? So, that's what I mean. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And
bringing it on to you, Ross, I want to highlight a couple of players that did have a great game. Christian Eriksen, 20 now, has provided more assists in all competitions this season than any other player in Europe's Big 5 leagues. He really is becoming that lockpicker, that deliverer that we all hoped he would be, didn't we, this season? He's really coming to the fore. Yeah, completely. I mean, that ball for Ali's goal, I was in the stadium and obviously acknowledged how good it was. But then upon reflection and watching the replays, more times than I care to admit, that ball is world class. The fact that Dele runs across the back of Luiz and says, just put it here for me. And Eriksen's got the awareness, the ability to literally drop it for him to not only find him, but then to have it in his path for him to run onto to find the net. It's just a ridiculously good assist. And we're sounding like Arsenal supporters with Mesut Ozil now, but seriously, what an assist. He's affecting big games though, isn't he, as well, Ross? Now, there was that question, can he do it on big stages? He's done it in the FA Cup semi-final. Granted, we didn't win the game, but he is now starting to have effect in these big games. Done it at home against Chelsea in the league, done it again in the FA Cup. He's, at the moment, he's in brilliant form, isn't he? He scored at the bridge as well, don't forget. Yeah, I was literally about to add, that volley weren't bad, considering it's his supposedly weaker left foot. Yeah. Lucy, coming to you next. I want to talk to you about Harry Kane. I said that on it earlier, touched upon it. 21 goals in 24 London derbies. Again, the striker for the big occasion. We can't ask more than what Kane is providing at the moment, can we? He's back in the Spurs team, and it's 2 goals since his injury.
I think the guy must have missed it so much. Imagine sitting... Where was he watching it? Was he watching it at home? Or where was he watching the games previously? He must have been itching to get on the blooming pitch. I have actually got a question about Eriksen, by the way. Go for it. I'm not name dropping. No. I was chatting to Spurs legend Cliff Jones. He said the one thing that frustrated him about Eriksen, what is the hand about with that corner? Well, are they the arm up? Are they working, Jace? Are we beating the first man yet on these corners? Well, because they haven't been the best corners all year, have they? But, again, you think, then why don't we put somebody else to take them? Or the same with these free kicks for goal at the moment, isn't it? It's now, 18 months since he scored from a free kick. So those bits are unexplainable sometimes. But it's the only thing I'll say is it's not just Christian Eriksen in the Premier League that can't take a corner. I watch almost every single week and see nobody can beat the first man. No, Jason, I completely agree with you. Let's go on. Let's come to you, Ross. We have to talk about this. Dele Alli, again, becomes only the 4th player to retain the PFA Young Player of the Season. Just how big an award is that for him? I think it stands kind of testament to the guy that it was expected. I can't say I was surprised, and I'm sure you three would agree that it's not really a surprise when he won it. And that's not a criticism. It's just a case of the guy's head and shoulders above most people in the league, let alone people his age group in the league. Yeah, incredible. He's been involved, coming to you, Lucy, in 31 goals in all competitions this season for Tottenham. 20 goals, 11 assists. He's frightening, isn't he, for his age, Dele Alli? Yeah, and he couldn't blow out his candles, could he? I love that video. Look, everyone just says to me, you're good, but you're going to lose Dele Alli. Everyone is saying it. Where's he going? Well, and the thing is, coming to you, Joseph, he just seems to love working under Pochettino. Pochettino seems to love him. He has got that bond you can see amongst the players where they love playing for him.
Would he want to move away at the moment? Because he just seems to be playing his best football.
I think he's quite calculated in that. We saw that with his move, that he didn't just jump to the first ones that went in for him. Pochettino, without a doubt, is a big part of his development. I think he knows that. I think he seems to have a decent management type of team behind him. So I'm sure they're saying to him, look, keep that development going. But, maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, or if the club does stall and we do start slipping out backwards, the more, and it applies to the other players as well, doesn't it? That once you're playing in the Champions League football and you miss it for a couple of seasons, or you suddenly drop out of it and you're not involved, then you will start to want it. And at some stage, he knows he will want to challenge for the big trophies, not just challenge them for them but to also win them. So that's the target for us. But I certainly don't fear him going this summer. But I have to say, I didn't fear Gareth Bale going the summer that he did when we went into that summer.
Ross, would you argue, just bringing you into that, I mean, Jason just says there about, trying to compete for trophies, but you would argue Spurs are doing that, aren't we? We're second again in the league this season, progression in terms of being in the title race for a second season, competing semi-finals of the FA Cup, hopefully Champions League will have a better run in it next year. Would you argue at the moment for a player, Spurs is the place to be?
Yeah, it's got to be, especially when you're as young as Dele, playing with other young players who are equally progressing at the same rate he is. I mean, I think it shouldn't be understated how big it is for Spurs to get Champions League 2 seasons in a row. It may sound silly and kind of almost defeatist and speak about going against Bill Nicholson, setting your expectations lower instead. But for Spurs to get 2 seasons Champions League consecutively, should we do so, after with the stadium move and obviously Pochettino's first season, we have to acknowledge how big of an achievement that will be. And yet we're still sitting here speaking about a title challenge with many weeks of the season remaining, us coming out of a semi-final at Wembley for the FA Cup.
There's a lot more positive, isn't there? I know it's difficult after Saturday's defeat. I know we've tried our best to be upbeat. There's so much more to play for. A huge game against Crystal Palace we're going to come on to very soon. I just want to say again, I mean, Harry Kane, I know we've touched upon him, he's the runner-up for that PFA Young Player of the Season, despite nearly missing a quarter of the season, which I just find incredible. And 5 of the last 6 PFA Young Player of the Year awards have gone to Tottenham players. Dele Alli twice, Kane, Bale and Walker involved in that. A tremendous achievement again for the club, really highlighting the great work Spurs are doing on and off the pitch with the players. I mean, it is a great time at the moment to be a Spurs fan. We know the disappointment of Saturday hurts, but Jace, I mean, listen, we've said that we know we're getting closer. Pochettino also seems to think so. He says, I believe this is an exciting team. It is only a matter of time. You believe that as well, Jace, yes?
I honestly do. I think it is just a matter. And, if you knock on the door enough times, eventually you break the door down. And we are so close to doing it. And the danger is if we panic and get so obsessed with it that it becomes an obstacle to ourselves, and then suddenly we'll slip way back from it. So let's keep on the path we're going on and just, keep calm and don't get too obsessive about things at the moment.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to say is social media Saturday evening, there were some really lovely tweets out there. Just from, obviously there was a bit of a, I wouldn't say a meltdown, but there was disappointment online. But I think there is a bigger picture now of Spurs fans. I don't know if you agree, Lucy, that everyone can see the club is going in the right direction. And it is a case that, listen, we don't need to change too much. We're not far away. We are literally so close now, aren't we? You can smell it.
You can. I've got some Chelsea mates and they said we deserve to win it.
Yeah.
And that's hard, but we just can't seem to. I don't think it's a Wembley thing. I think you said it, Ross, earlier. We're getting better at Wembley. I'm quite excited now about the potential for being there. We've got to get into this new stadium. We have to move somewhere. I think we look better than we have previously. The last, 7 games we lost. We look better, and we didn't look bad. We look great.
Yeah.
And we didn't bottle it either.
No.
I think that's the other thing, lots of people would say, they've lost it again, and the Mickey takers and the other sites that aren't Tottenham related will all say that, but we definitely played better at Wembley. We showed we could play at Wembley, and we definitely didn't bottle it on the big day.
Completely agree with you guys. I say a lot to look forward to. We're going to touch on Palace very shortly. Guys, we're going to go for a very quick break and we're going to leave you with the Loan Watch for this week, our brand new feature on the e-Spurs podcast. Naturally, talking about our players out on loan. We'll be back in a couple of minutes for the questions for tonight's panel.
Hello and welcome to Loan Watch, where I provide a weekly update on the players currently on loan from White Hart Lane. As always, I will begin with players on loan at clubs outside of England. Roma have not been in action since we last spoke, but are away to Pescara this evening in Serie A, a match in which Federico Fazio will more than likely feature. It has been a disappointing week for Nabil Bentaleb and Schalke. On Thursday evening, they were eliminated from the Europa League by Ajax Amsterdam. Despite winning 3-2 on the night after extra time, the German side crashed out 4-3 on aggregate. On Sunday, Schalke were held to a 1-1 draw at home by high-flying RB Leipzig. Bentaleb played the entirety of both matches. In France, Clinton Ng was handed a rare start by Marseille coach Rudy Garcia and played 61 minutes of the goalless draw away at Nancy. In America, Anton Wakes was not named in Atlanta United's matchday squad for the game against Real Salt Lake. Moving on to our younger players who are on loan at clubs throughout all three tiers of the English Football League. In the Championship, Will Miller was not named in Burton Albion's matchday squad for their game against Leeds United. In League One, Luke Amos was again an unused substitute for Southend United as they lost 1-0 away at Shrewsbury Town, a result that leaves their playoff hopes hanging in the balance with only one game left to play. Luke McGee played the full match as Peterborough United ran out 4-2 winners at home to Bristol Rovers. Luke saved a penalty at 1-0, diving low to his right to keep out Ellis Harrison's spot kick, but was beaten twice late on by Rovers substitute Rory Gaffney. In League 2, Shayon Harrison came on as a 68th-minute substitute in Yeovil's entertaining 4-2 away defeat to Grimsby Town. Conor Ogilvie played the full game as Stevenage lost 1-0 at home to Mansfield Town, a result that leaves Stevenage's playoff hopes hanging by a thread with only 2 games remaining. Ryan Loft was not part of the Stevenage matchday squad. That's all for this week. If you would like to get in touch with me on social media, I can be found on Twitter at coach_Chris83. Speak to you next week. Come on, you Spurs.
Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As always, we ask you to get in touch with us on a weekly basis for anything THFC related, and you can do that by tweeting our Twitter account of @e_Spurs, leaving your question with the hashtag at the end of eSpursPod. Now it's fair to say, guys, you've got into us again in your droves this week. We're going to start with you tonight, Ross. We've got a question here from Fan Boxing Power Rankings, interesting, and he says Kane scored his 90th goal for Spurs at the weekend. Can he break Jimmy Greaves' 266 goal club record?
Oh, starting off with the easy questions then.
Well,
I mean, speak about putting pressure on the kid. No, I mean, why not? Like, he's what, 23 now?
Yeah.
And he scored 90 goals already. And let's be honest, since he came onto the scene in that first season, he doesn't look like stopping scoring. I mean, I know he had the blip at the start of the second. The critics came out and said one season wonder as much as they wished for it to be true. But, I mean, would you bet against him? Because I wouldn't bet against him doing it.
What do you reckon? Just a quick round the table. Jace, can he do it?
He can, but I'll definitely bet against it.
Really? Okay, what you think?
And that's not a criticism of Harry Kane at all. I think Jimmy Greaves, how many goals is it?
266, I believe.
266. You know, you got to stay incredibly fit. He's got to be playing for the next 8 or 9 years, and he's got to play that whole time as a striker. And it wouldn't surprise me if in 3 or 4 years' time he ends up being, almost a second striker. So I'll say he wouldn't do, but that's not a criticism in any way of Harry Kane or down doing his ability.
Don't forget though, he should be playing Arsenal 2-3 times a season for the next 5 years. So
well said, Ross. I like it. Why not? And Luce, very quickly for you, just yes or no on that one. Can he break it, Harry Kane?
If he sticks about, yeah.
Sticks about, there you go, fingers crossed. And we're going to bring the next question to you, Lucy. We're going to stick with you. We've got Josh Fitter at JoshFitter95 who says, thoughts on next season at Wembley? I know we aren't done this one yet, but could be a tough year. Does Poch get a free season? I just
do not know. Is it? When do we know? By the way,
I think end of this month we're going to know either way. Which I think at the moment it is looking likely it is going to be Wembley. But what do you think? I mean, based on what we saw Saturday, nothing wrong with that performance, like we've said. Should we have much to fear there?
I think we just need to put our feet under the table. We'll be fine. We'll be absolutely fine. We looked a lot better on Saturday than we have in the last 7-8 games. So. Yeah, I'm confident. We've got to be confident. And we've played there more than most other clubs, haven't we, I guess?
Very true.
In the last few months. So we're kind of used to it a little bit more than other people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And next question tonight, Jace, goes to you. We've got Daniel Brady at DanielBrady82 who says, if we continue to qualify for the Champions League, is that going to be enough to keep players if we don't win a trophy in the coming 2 to 3 years? Good question.
I think in the coming 2 years it will be enough, but at some stage, it's, they'll enjoy playing the Champions League, and then they'll want to. They will want to then win a trophy. So I think for the next 2 years, I wouldn't worry. But if there's no trophies there in 2 years' time, then it becomes a problem, because we don't know how much patience then Pochettino will have with the projects. And I think when Pochettino leaves, then that would be the trigger point for a number of them.
Yeah,
but I don't see it happening for 2 years.
Bringing it to you, Ross, I know you've spoken about, like myself, just how great this Spurs squad is and the bond that Pochettino has really kind of brought around the club, the ethos. Just how imperative. I mean, for me, he's the glue that sticks this Spurs squad together. Would you go along the lines like that?
It's quite telling, I thought, when he left Southampton that summer. The fact that Lambert then went, Lallana, and I think there was one other big one.
Klein? Is what, Shaw? I think Shaw, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Shaw. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was Luke Shaw. Yeah. And even players that haven't even necessarily been in favour under his management have all come out of glowing terms. So I definitely think it's fair to say that, obviously, as we've witnessed, he has a very tight bond with the players, and that goes a lot in their development, both on and off the pitch. I mean, you've heard Wanyama, a big grown man, a beast even, speak about Pochettino being his father figure. So that's quite kind of vindictive enough of the influence he has on these young players, I feel.
Yeah, and apparently Danny Rose is apparently his son, but we'll have that waiting to be confirmed.
DNA results.
Sticking with you, Ross, for a second. Next question of the night is Joel Albee, who says, do we need more experience in the squad to help us with the big occasions, or will we learn from this and get over the line next time around? It's a good question again. What do you think, Ross?
I mean, I feel like we have enough experience. I feel like, if I'm completely honest, and I thought this for a while, the role of experience seems to be somewhat overstated. I mean, obviously you need people there and done it to guide them through both off the pitch as well as on. But you're forgetting that we have, 3-4 Eredivisie titles between our centre-backs alone in Vertonghen and Alderweireld. Eriksen's won some himself. I mean, I know it's the Dutch league and it's not the most reputable, but when you're looking at these people that we need experience, you're looking at not only the experience factor, because Poch won't touch them if they're over 27, 28, stereotypically. So you're then looking at players that are going to be 40, 50 million, because they're winning teams because they're valuable and they're under 28, 29. And therefore, our Spurs in a position where we can pay that kind of money, which I know is a debate, completely off topic. And secondly, the teams they're at that are winning regularly, hence why they're winners, are probably in a better, stronger position than we are at current, if truth be told.
And the thing is, Jace, I mean, like Ross just says there, another thing that I think as well is that we've got such a great first 11. It's just so hard to upgrade that first team, isn't it, Jace? That first 11 I'm talking about.
Yeah, we've said that all season, isn't it? It is really hard. We saw the problem as we were talking about last week with Son and Wanyama trying to get 12 people into 11 places. So without adding 3 or 4 more into it as well. But you're right. The experienced player you're talking about is going to cost 60 million quid's worth, and it's then does he have the legs to play the pressing game? I mean, you can go the other way, can't you, with experience and pick a bloke right off towards the end of his career. Say, I'm not necessarily saying these two, but say Company or a Yaya Toure or like John Terry. Some clubs will pick him up because of experience, but you get the feeling that we wouldn't want a player like that because he'll just never get in the team because he then can't get the legs to get around the pitch. So it is difficult to improve on that first 11 for sure.
And I think another thing as well, Jace, is also that these kind of players that everyone talks about, these leaders, they are dying out the game now. You don't get the likes anymore of, like, say, I don't want to mention him, I wouldn't want him, the likes of a John Terry, a Frank Lampard, the Roy Keanes, the Patrick Vieiras. They're not about anymore in the Premier League. So it's just one of those things where football has evolved now, more modern day. It's very hard to pick up these kind of leaders. I want to bring it on to you next, Lucy. We've got a question here talking about the game on Saturday from Stephen Walker at the First B, who says, again, come up short against a team who locks out the final third. What's the solution? A dribbling midfielder or less sideways passing? I don't know if he's being sarcastic. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, most games are closed out in the final third, aren't they? And I don't know, I just felt like at the end, we did pass a lot at the end. I was frustrated. I wanted just more opportunities. But I think they were just being careful not to give anything away again. I don't know. What do the other lads think?
Well, some of that you have to give credit down to the opposition, the way they're defending, don't they? If they don't open those spaces up and they read your passes and they close you down in the right areas, sometimes you do have to go sideways at times because that forward pass isn't on. And if they defend deep, there's not the space in behind to knock the ball over the top. When we did have a chance and had that space, Eriksson knocked that ball straight into Ali and we scored from it. So, it's partly down to us, but there are two teams on the pitch, and funnily enough, there's a team out there that's trying to stop you doing the things you want to do as well.
And we're going to bring it on to you, Ross. Got a question here from Cody J. Roy, at Cody J. Roy, who says, is the title race over after the FA Cup result, or is there still a way Chelsea bottle the 4-point lead? Give us some positivity, Ross. What do you reckon?
No, I definitely don't think it's over. I mean, when there's 6 games left of a season, you're 4 points behind the leaders.
Yeah.
There's definitely not, a reason to say the title race is conclusively finished and name Chelsea champions now. But I mean, the history of this season suggests that Chelsea aren't going to. But then, before, what we've got to remember is before this game, we were speaking about a Chelsea team which Diego Costa hadn't scored in 5 league games. They'd lost their last 2 and hadn't kept a clean sheet in their last 10 or something. So, there is holes in that Chelsea team and vulnerabilities, but whether teams will expose them or Chelsea will even give them an opportunity now they've been exposed by the likes of Manchester United and Crystal Palace is another thing. But no, it's definitely not over. Do I think we will win it? No. But am I hopeful that we'll at least put up a challenge till the last day of the season and push them all the way to the maximum? Then definitely yes.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that. I know we want to talk about the mental side of the game in terms of the Palace, and we're going to look at that. We're going to see, obviously, like I say, from our perspective, if Spurs can raise themselves. And final question tonight to you, Ross. I want to ask you this one. This is from Harry Charalambos, who says, will we ever be able to do well in the high pressure games? It's a fair point, isn't it? Because we do have this problem when it comes to the big games at the moment. We're just not getting over the line.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fair question. I mean, history says they're right. But no, I think it's one of those things that aligned with the players' development is also their maturity on the pitch and the experience and know how to do things. I mean, I know I understated the role of experience earlier, but these are young guys. Like Kane was playing for our academy 3 years ago. Dele was playing in League One, and that's not a get out.
No.
I mean, obviously, they've matured and developed since, but that's the reality. We haven't bought players where we're expecting them to come in and win things for us. All of these are nurtured and developed to fit in with our kind of ethos, and then hopefully blossom so much that they win trophies for the club.
Jace, want to come in on there? Final word on that? What do you reckon? Will we be able to handle this pressure on the big games?
Well, wasn't Chelsea on January the 2nd a big game?
Yeah,
we won that one.
Man City.
Wasn't Man City at the start of the season a big game, and we won that. And wasn't Man United at the end of last season when we were trying to win a title, and we beat them 3-0 at White Hart Lane? Wasn't that a big game? And didn't we go to Anfield at the end of last season to get a result? And we went to Stamford Bridge last year. Apparently we bottled it, but we actually drew that game at Stamford Bridge, didn't we, if I remember rightly?
Yeah.
And it was the night that Harry Kane clinched the Golden Boot. So I take the point, but it's I think we said last week, when you look at the games between the top 6 this season, only 5 times in 26 has the away side won. And so, our away, other than Liverpool, Chelsea have lost this season at White Hart Lane. They lost at Highbury. They lost at Old Trafford. They lost at the Emirates. They lost at Old Trafford. So have they handled the big away games any better than we have?
Well, that's a good question. And it does bring us on nicely, that question, to Crystal Palace, because that is a big pressure game for us. Coming to you, Ross. I mean, Palace at the moment, they've only dropped 5 points in the last 2 months. Wins over Chelsea, Arsenal and Liverpool. Sam Allardyce today says that they feel unbeatable at the moment. I mean, we are coming off the back of a really devastating result. Can we somehow lift ourselves for this game? It does feel very much, Ross, correct me if I'm wrong if you don't feel the same, like that West Brom game where after we were so deflated, have we got the mental ability now to lift ourselves for a performance and a result?
This is where characters are built.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know history makes, again, suggest that Spurs in the past haven't, but Spurs have enough to beat Crystal Palace. Let's not get that wrong, whether it be home or away.
Yeah.
And that's not arrogance, that's just the confidence the team gives me since Pochettino's arrived. And I heard today as well, Allardyce may say they're unbeaten, but he also said that he's not sure he can field a team as strong as he did against Liverpool away at Anfield at the weekend, purely because of the quick turnaround. And to be fair, if they're playing Zeki Friars, I'd fancy Harry Kane up against him.
It's a great point there. Listen, Ross is really giving it tonight. I love it. We're going to bring it round to you, Lucy. Can you give us some positivity, Lucy, coming into this game against Palace? God, we need it. Come on. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we can 100% beat them. I was at Swansea and it was the best day of my life, and I think we'll have exactly the same. It was absolutely amazing. You know, if we drop one, we'll come back. I think we can really do it. And if anything, we've got more positivity because we want it. You know, we're really going for it now. We've got more to fight for now. Yeah. So I think we will win it. And I think, you know, Sam Allardyce can eat his words.
Fingers crossed. Jace, coming to you. Jace. Positivity so far. Are you going to give us more of a diplomatic answer? What do you think? It's going to be a tough game on the night, isn't it? We've got the likes of Zaha probably playing against us, Andros Townsend. These guys will be wanting to put in a performance and show us really, number one, why we sold Andros, and number two, why we might want to buy Zaha. What do you think?
Yeah, they've shown in recent weeks they're a decent side when they're going forward. They've got pace in the team, and Christian Benteke is one of those blokes that, with the greatest respect in the world, if he's on his game, he is a real handful, isn't it? The question is always with Benteke is, you know, he perhaps only has 5 or 6 of his days a season, but when he gets it right, he's incredibly difficult to play against. You just have to stop them getting to those areas and delivering the ball into him. And then if you do get the ball into him, you've got to make sure you stop the knockdowns and things like that. But I don't actually doubt our character going there. And I think that is the main thing. We want to see that character from Tottenham. We want to see that belief. We want to see that we've shrugged it off and thought, okay, we've just lost to Chelsea. You know, they're a good side. We're a good side. We haven't lost 4-0 away at Wigan or something ridiculous like that. So, you know, there's no reason for us to doubt ourselves because we've actually lost to Chelsea. You know, so go to Palace, have that confidence, play on the front foot, use you know, just be aware of their problem areas, and I'm sure we'll have a decent enough result down there.
Yeah, and Ross, team-wise for you, would you change anything? Would you bring Ben Davies in if fit? What would you do to the team? Does it need a shake-up?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, obviously we don't really know Davis' situation again, as alluded to previously. But if he's fit, then I'd bring him in purely just to restore balance, if anything. Because obviously, you know, you have whether they makeshift Song at left back again, we'll see. But the fact that obviously he's cutting in, and then on the other side, you either have Trippier or Walker bombing forward, the balance did seem a bit off as much as we did dominate on the ball. So yeah. If Davis is back, then him. But obviously, if not, I still have confidence in Son to do the job against Crystal Palace.
Fair enough. And to you, Lucy, would you change the team? I mean, bearing in mind we don't know what Davis' situation yet is. I think we'll get team news Tuesday afternoon. What would you look to do?
I totally agree with Ross. And the other thing is about Palace, they're safe now, aren't they? So they're not fighting as much for safety. I think Ross is right. I don't know what's going on with Benny Davis, but we'll see. I think Poch is going to look at that. He'll look at what we did wrong, and we'll come back stronger.
Fingers crossed. And it would still be, in your opinion, Ross, like I say, if it isn't the title, which you don't think we're going to win, second's still an achievement, isn't it? What do you reckon?
Oh, yeah, massively. Considering how last season ended, what with us being in second until, the last day of the season it was. So, second, such is testament to Poch and his work, the fact that we're now speaking of league titles. But
well, exactly.
I don't want to speak about, fourth place being a trophy or even Champions League qualification, but Spurs haven't had Champions League football for 2-3 years. And don't forget the mess that Pochettino took over in terms of squad personnel when he came in.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, we don't need to go back, but we know the likes of the Capoos, even like I say, that little brigade we had, the Aaron Lennon, the Yunus Kabul situation. He's handled it very, very well. And there's no doubt. We're thinking of the title still, Lucy. What do you think?
Well, you mentioned the word Spursy earlier.
Yeah.
I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot by being a bit too positive before Saturday's game as well. So we've got to stay level-headed. I can't believe we're talking about title, the title run, 6 games to go. I can't believe it, and I think we're very down to earth as Spurs. But I don't know whether I'm saying that on behalf of you lot as well. Anything's a bonus, right?
I agree. Well, I think we have to be. I think anyone can see, like we've guys have spoken about, is the long-term picture. It is very positive as Spurs. Let's try and do some predictions then for the Palace game. Let's come first to you, Jay. Let's get your prediction then. Palace, what are you going for?
2-1. Actually, I'll go 3-1 Tottenham.
3-1 Tottenham. Okay, coming to you, Ross. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be 3-1. I think it'll be 2-1, a bit of a tight match. I mean, I think 80th minute or so we'll leer away and get him get a third in, and I'm going to go Song scoring as well, but brace for Harry Kane as well to keep Romelu Lukaku on his toes.
Yeah, he does like scoring there, Kane. He does indeed. And finally to you, Lucy, come on, what are you going to give us score-wise?
I wrote it down when you first said it, and I said 3-1. Dele Eriksson, Sonny.
Dele Eriksson. So we like the 3-1 scoreline here.
3-1.
We'll make it a full house. We'll go for 3-1 Spurs. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Don't be silly. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ross, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been great having you on.
Thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure. And Jace, thank you as always.
No problem, mate. No problem.
Great, lovely. And guys, we're going to be back Thursday evening for a special extra time when hopefully Spurs do the job against Crystal Palace and we're still within a sniff of that title race. This is your e-Spurs podcast. Come on, you Spurs!